Welcome to this LEX 18 Digital Conversation. I'm Dia Davidson. Clark Davis, Miss Kentucky 2015, suffers with dyslexia. And while she once thought it was a sign of inferiority, she's now taking her passion and is asking legislators here in the state to help kids just like her with House Bill 187. So she's here today to talk about what dyslexia is and how House Bill 187 will help other children with learning disabilities. Clark, it's always good to see you.
Happy to be here, as always.
Dyslexia. I mean, that's an awfully big word. What is this?
It's a word with one meaning, but a million little tiny pieces to it. So dyslexia is a neurological learning disability that affects the brain's ability to process and understand information. So it's like a computer that just runs a little slow. We've all had a computer that just kind of lags a little. Yeah, just buffering a little bit longer, but it'll get there eventually. It just takes a minute to get from point A to point B. So that's essentially what dyslexia is.
Like I was telling you before we got started, the first time that I'd ever heard the word was back in the 80s on The Cosby Show. One of the characters, Theo, Malcolm Jamal Warner, was diagnosed with this condition, and the way they described it was reading things backwards. Is that a fair analysis, or is it different for each person?
Kind of one of our dyslexia myths. So it's not that, and a lot of people think that, and that's an okay misconception, but it's not that we see things backwards necessarily. It's simply that when we do see the information, sometimes letters do look like they're in different orders, not necessarily all of the letters. And of course, I'm speaking in very broad terms because dyslexia can be very, very mild, but it can also be very severe, and mine's fairly severe. So it's not necessarily that we read things backwards, but it is that when we look at things, when we look at words in particular, they don't always necessarily look like they are in the order that they are truly written to be on the page. So sometimes if you see and the, you might actually see the and, which we know doesn't make sense to us, and as a dyslexic, it's a lot of times we'll notice that it doesn't seem right, but we can't quite figure out why it doesn't seem right.
How did you first know that this is something that you were going to have to deal with?
Right, so I was very young. My mother actually suffers from dyslexia as well.
Really? Okay.
My mother and my grandmother, so it's a hereditary.
So is it really? Okay.
Yeah, so for a lot of people it's hereditary, and there is no test or anything that you can use to determine whether or not you're going to have dyslexia. It's something that you're just born with. And so for me, my mom started to notice that I would have a hard time rhyming words. That was one of the big cues, and that's that's something that a lot of students with dyslexia have, is they have a hard time rhyming words together. And so she was noticing just little things that were hard, and that I was simply reading on a level that was a lot slower than the other children in about 3rd grade. So she brought the attention, she brought to the
your teacher's attention.
There, gotcha. And there's my dyslexia. Everything's in a different order. So she brought that to the attention of my teachers. But the school at the time didn't recognize dyslexia as a specific learning disability. It actually got classified as a generic learning disability. So we then went outside of the school to get testing. And that brings me to my next point, which is why House Bill 187, my dyslexia is showing all over the place. I got my numbers all mixed up. House Bill 187 is important because it's going to be able to help teachers get trained to be able to see signs of dyslexia in young people. And so that's something that I didn't have as a young student. My mom had to see it and then go outside of the school. But what we want ultimately is for the government to fund testing for students with dyslexia, because it affects about 25% of students.
It's that high a number.
It's huge, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, we got to thank
I got to fact check it.
We got to thank heaven for the mamas, don't we? Look at you there on the screen. But you know, Clark, you're a beautiful young woman.
Thank
you. You can tell in your face this is something that has really kind of, it's affected you, hasn't it, since you were a little kid and dealing with it, because you're about in tears, aren't you?
Yeah, it's funny because I was Miss Kentucky. I've done a million and one things. I'm an opera singer. I am in front of people 80% of the time in my life. But for the first time ever, I was nervous.
Were you really?
I was actually, this was the first time I was ever nervous to give a speech, presentation, or whatever it was, because it was so raw. It was like the first time I actually told a room full of strangers something that...
This is who I am.
This is who I am, and it's something that I felt embarrassed about for a really long time, and I still have a hard time reminding myself that it's okay for me to work slow. Yeah. But it was the first time I truly showed people who I really am, and I'm a person that struggles with reading, and I applaud you. I'm looking at these monitors and you're reading, and I'm like, what does that thing say? I don't know how you're doing it, and I'm like amazed. Wow. But that's just what makes us different. It doesn't make me lesser. No. It just makes me different.
Because, I mean, I don't think that I could parade in front of people in a bathing suit or answer questions. In high heels, definitely can't do that anymore. And I mean, you're a young woman who's about to graduate from the University of Kentucky with a degree in music, and music is not the easiest thing. You're reading notes on a scale. I mean, on the staff and everything.
And I'm still struggling with that. I mean, I'm having a very hard time. I'm in upper level music theory classes. I'm in analysis and oral music theory, and they are
hard.
They are not for the faint of heart at all. And so I'm still struggling with it, but I'm so thankful that I've had this platform that has allowed me to be vulnerable. So now when I am in the classroom, I remind myself that it's okay. But it is difficult. Reading music is still super hard for me, and I know that eventually it will get easier, but for right now I'm just through the thick of it, and that's what I want. I want every person with dyslexia, or people that don't have dyslexia that still suffer from just having a hard time reading, because there is illiteracy in this country, and I just want people to know that it's okay and that they're not alone, because a lot of times reading is something you can do silently, and so when you're looking at a page, you can be faking like you're reading it.
Sure. Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
You can be faking like you're reading it.
Sure.
But I want people to know that they should at least try. And it's going to be hard, and you might have a tear rolling down, ruining the rest of the paper, but you know what? If you keep going, eventually you'll get there.
And you know, that message is resonating with so many people, Clark. So now, where does the House bill sit right now?
I believe it got passed.
It did get passed.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure I didn't want to. How did that make you feel? That's quite an accomplishment, young lady.
You know how I found out? Nobody sent me an email or a text or a call. I was at the St. Patrick's Day parade, and Senator George Brown walks in the parade and sees me sitting on the ground and says, "Hey, we passed your bill," and just keeps going. I was like, okay, well, now I know.
And see, that's what I had heard, but I was like, wait a minute now. You know. And that's sad. I wish we had really kind of trumpeted the horn on that, because there are a lot of young people out there that would have given them a lot of hope.
It's a huge victory.
It's a huge victory.
It is going to really change and improve the lives of thousands of students in this country, or in this state.
And then the ripple effect. Clark, you don't know. It could ripple to other states.
Because we've been observing other states and seeing how they're dealing with dyslexia, and that encouraged our state to do something about it. And we ultimately have the power to change this entire country and to empower other people. And like everyone always says, reading is fundamental. So why are we not putting an emphasis on making sure that everybody at least has that basic skill to be able to use as a building block for the rest of their life?
Talk about the rest of the life.
Makes sense to me.
You're young. You've got the world is your oyster. You're at the beginning of the journey. So where is this journey going to take you now? You've done quite a bit.
Yeah, I've done a lot in my short 20 years on this earth. So my next step, I graduate from the University of Kentucky in May.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. And then my plan is to move to New York City shortly thereafter and pursue my dreams of singing and performing, and we'll see.
Who are some of your inspirations?
Well, I love this opera singer named Nadine Sierra. She is so humble. She has one of the best voices that I've ever, well, I haven't gotten the chance to see her in person, but from all the recordings that I have watched intensely, she has such a beautiful voice, but what's more important to me is how classy and graceful she is off the stage. And that's how I want to be. I want to exude confidence and class and grace everywhere I go. I think that is the kind of thing that will make the world better, and I think that will allow me to live my best life.
Indeed. You said that dyslexia is something that's genetic, so this is preparing you. You want to be a mom one day?
I do want to be a mom one day. One day, not today.
Not today. Is that a concern for you? Because is it mother to daughter? Does it go along? Because you said your grandmother and your mother and you.
Well, Well, so it doesn't, gender is not a factor.
Specific. Okay.
So there are actually no factors that we've found in research. Well, I could be wrong, so
Okay.
you can fact check me for sure.
Okay.
But as far as I know, there are no, there's nothing that determines whether or not a person has dyslexia, not gender, race, anything. But no, it doesn't concern me. I almost would be happy if my children had dyslexia, because I have gone through the toughest times in the world, but now I have mechanisms to help me cope. And so if I can pass that down to my children, or not even just my children, right now I'm doing it for kids all over the Commonwealth and all over the country. I'll be in Florida at Disney World in April, speaking at a dyslexia conference down there.
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Yay! The happiest
so
place
excited.
on
I know.
earth. That is. What are some of those coping mechanisms, or I guess games that you play with yourself in order to keep everything going?
Yeah, I kind of have to play mind games on myself. I have to just make myself do it.
Okay.
So the biggest coping mechanism for me for being able to understand a piece of written text is highlighting and annotating. I find that if I highlight, or if I make very deliberate circles or squares or rectangles around words, it helps me understand them better. Somehow adding colors and shapes around words, like keywords, help me then process the entire piece of text better.
So yours looks like
a pretty picture,
huh?
See, there are colors, there are shapes, and there'll be like notes that I'll write out to the side to help me bring all of these words to come together to make one piece of the puzzle. Do you think you'd ever want to teach, maybe? Maybe.
Because this is a gift that God has given to you.
Yeah.
To be able to share and to share with other children and parents and teachers. Yeah. Because there's some teachers that are not necessarily versed in knowing how to deal with.
Right. And for people that don't have dyslexia, I think that it can be overwhelming, just even the thought of, well, what can I do to help?
Right.
Because my dad, he does not have dyslexia, and before we realized what I had, he is a fantastic reader. And he would say, Clark, I don't even read every word on the page. I read every other word, and my brain just kind of fills in the rest. The thought, he was like, just try it. And I was like, but he didn't know I had dyslexia. He was just trying to help me with what he knew. Right. He's a fantastic reader. My dad is a wizard. He is super smart.
And he's a great basketball player.
Player. Go Cats. He played for UK. But yeah, so I could see how for a person that isn't even reading every word on the page, how having a child or a student that has to read every word 100 times to be able to understand would be really frustrating, and it would be really hard to even think that you had the ability to help, but you do. It just takes a lot of research, and I had to research. I had to, I tried to put my text on colored pieces of paper, and for me that didn't work, but for other students with dyslexia it does. My mom uses tinted glasses. She has a red tint on her normal glasses that she wears every day, so when she reads, it helps her brain be able to process the information with a little red tint on her glasses. She says it helps, and if it helps, it helps. And for me, I have squares and triangles and colors all over my paper. It's just a matter of trying 100 different things, and you might find one that works. But the one that does,
that's your thing,
is what you stick with.
Your mom gave me the greatest book, and that was the Bible when I was getting married. And so that endeared me definitely to her and to your family. And your brother, how's he doing?
He's
playing
doing
basketball?
Well. Yeah, he plays for EKU still, and unfortunately he's out this season because he hurt his shoulder. So. But he'll be back next season. Sounds good.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing some more great things from you, Ms. Davis. Indeed, indeed. So very proud of you and all that you're doing. Keep up the good work. And we thank you so much for watching this LEX18 Digital Conversation. Be sure to watch more conversations on lex18.com. Until next time, I'm Dia Davidson.